commonly discussed topic, and I get asked a ton of questions about it personally. And so I thought, with the onset of winter coming, I thought I'd get into this subject. And that subject is how to catch bass in the winter. It's a fact. They slow down. They eat less. They move less. They're deeper. They're farther away, It's simply they slow down, and so does the fishing. But you can make a little bit of a difference by doing some tackle techniques and using some techniques that you don't normally use, or maybe you do use. I don't know. I don't know you guys' fishing techniques, but I know that most of my time is spent fishing in the warmer months because I have a lot of warm months down here in Georgia, sorry. A lot of people up north, they have more cold months, so they spend a lot of time ice fishing. I'm not doing ice fishing. That's not what I'm going into. I've never ice fished, so I'm going to just set that straight. This video isn't about ice fishing. It's going to be about bass fishing in cold weather. That's pretty much it. I'm going to go through a lot of techniques and a lot of ways to catch them. It's going to be a lengthy video. I'm not going to make this short and sweet. I want this to be the reference for cold water and cold weather bass fishing. It's early November here in Georgia, and winter's starting to set on. So I thought that I would make this video. I thought this is a good time to do it before winter really sets in for everyone. And I want you guys to be able to refer back to this video all winter and all early spring long, so that you can keep learning these techniques and keep practicing. So without further ado, we're going to get into the video on how to catch bass in cold water or winter. Thanks. The first technique that I'm going to go into is jigs. Everyone throws a jig in the winter. It's one of those staple baits that always works and always will work. Jigs represent a lot of things. They represent bluegill, represent baitfish, craws. There's so many things that jigs represent. And I'm going to go into a little bit of what a jig consists of. This might be pretty basic for a lot of you guys, but new viewers, new people getting into fishing, I want them to be able to enjoy this video as well. That's what a jig looks like. I'm going to be focusing on small jigs for this part of the presentation. I'll get into bigger jigs later, but for right now I'm focusing on the smaller or finesse style of jigs. Basically, a jig is a weighted head. It can be with a weed guard or without a weed guard. Most have a weed guard. The hook is attached to the head, and this thing is a skirt. It's multi-strands of silicone or living rubber or silicone round rubber, and it has different colors, flakes, different styles of color. I've got one of my favorite, a little red craw one. I've got a little brown pumpkin watermelon one. I got a black and blue right here. I'll be getting into all those in just a second. But this is a smaller jig, as you can see. It's not a big jig. I think it's 1/4 ounce. And what I like to do with these is, of course, this is a football head. You can throw them without a trailer, but my favorite trailer right now, and I can tell this thing is going to be deadly in the winter, is the Big Boy Bait Scuttlebug. As you can see, I've trimmed it down so that the last little legs right there are on there. And then all you do is just move the weed guard out of the way, bring it straight up the center, bring that hook out. I normally hang it all down and move everything down so I can get a good hold on that hook keeper without the skirt interfering, and then let everything dangle back down. And that's just a really good small. You can throw this on a medium spinning combo, 10-pound fluorocarbon. You can throw it on 15-pound or 12-pound copolymer or fluorocarbon on a little bait cast combo. This kind of bait can really do some numbers on the rocks. The rocks is what I like to focus my attention on with these baits. The big jigs, the big heavy plastic flipping baits, that's different. I don't go rocks with those. I go rocks with these small little jigs. Because rocks, this is meant to make a crawl. This is a crawl. It looks like a crawl. The punch buggy trailer with this, it's a crawl. All of these are craws. And so what you want to do is those little craws, about that big, those things scoot right in the rocks. They hide their little homes are right there in the rocks. And if you could find those, and you could key into those fish that are feeding on those, it might not be every little rock pile you happen upon, but if you can find a really active rock pile that fish are around and looking for craws, they're not going to be moving fast because it's winter. You can do some really serious numbers and catch a lot of good fish. So, pick up some small 1/4 ounce jig heads, football jigs this winter. Get some natural colors. Don't go with your whites, your really crazy colors. Just go with a nice natural watermelon craw. Get a black and blue. I'll go into this in just a little bit. Get some nice colors. For the trailers, of course, I'm going to be talking about my baits because that's all I fish right now. Is my baits. My plastics is all I fish. So that's what I have my expertise in. The Big Boy Bait Scuttlebug. It's available on my website. I'll post a link in the description. That's going to be the main one that I use. The Punch Buggy. I love the Punch Buggy. The Punch Buggy is going to work, but the main one that I like right now, for this technique, of course, is the Scuttlebug. The Punch Buggy has its moments. For just normal light flipping with a bullet weight, the Punch Buggy definitely rules. But for jig trailers and heavier flipping, the Scuttlebug rules. So, also, black and blue. As you can see, I have a Demiki. It's a little bit bent because it's been in my box for a while. Demiki Finesse Miki. It's a little wormtail. It's supposed to be a drop shot finesse shaky head style bait. I'll rig it up on this little jig head. I was throwing this thing up in Canada for smallmouth, railing a smallmouth on this thing. No footage from that, of course, because my camera's dead, but as you can see, this is another football, the same as this one. It's just a black and blue color. And this tail really, it ticks them off. I don't know what it is about it. They think it's a worm, They think it's a little craw in the rocks. They just love the black and blue. So, small jigs. That's a technique that you really need to focus on. A lot of people do focus on it. A lot of tournaments are won with small jigs in the winter. But you need to start throwing these if you aren't. They're a real money maker. You can catch a lot of good fish on them. And rocks is where they work. So stay tuned for the next segment of this video. For the next section of this video, I'm going to be going into something that I'm not really a big fisherman on. I don't fish these baits in the warm months. The only time I'm going to fish him is the cold months, because that's really the only time that they've really produced for me. Personally, I've tried them a lot, but the cold months is where these things really shine, and they shine bright, trust me. Crankbaits. This is a deep diver. It's a Bomber Switchback Shad. It's in a croc color, as you can see. Real nice color. Bomber Baits, they're a great company, so check them out as well. Big, deep diving crankbait. Caught some pike on this thing up there in Canada, and I actually have caught a couple fish on this bait down here. I'm just not a big crankbait thrower. Also, the original Shad Rap. This is the Shad Rap RS. It's the plastic version, not the balsa. It casts a lot farther. It's actually it's a much heavier bait than the original Shad Rap, but I do have other Shad Raps. Just the original Shad Rap. Anything, crankbaits, I'm not too picky about crankbaits, guys. And I don't think you should be either. As long as it runs true and it casts far enough, it's going to work pretty much. The action is key, but if those action's dead on, I'm not too particular about brands. Color is great. You need something nice at bait fishing. The Lindy Darter. This thing is pretty sweet. I got this from Fish Hound, and I didn't really know what to do with it. It's like a rattle trap. It's a really heavy rattle trap. It weighs almost an ounce. I think it's 6/8 of an ounce. It's a pretty heavy bait. So, 3/4 of an ounce, and I like to do this thing as a jigging spoon in the winter. I'll just sit there over a deep, some deep structure or something, and I'll just rip it up and let it flutter down. Rip it up, let it flutter down. Or you can just rail this thing 1.5 miles, down the lake, and just burn this thing in. But this pretty much represents a rattle trap. I have other rattle traps, of course, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to be going over with this one. So I put these baits in the same category. Crankbaits and rattle traps, same category. Maybe not the most productive. You really have to find those right conditions for them to work. You need to find the color. They need to be hitting the bottom, and you get the depth right, get the forage right, fish are in the active mood, get the rattles right, color, everything has to be right, but you can really have some great days with this. If you don't believe me, check out Paul Elias's video of breaking that heavyweight bass fishing world record on Lake Falcon with crankbaits. That's an awesome video. So, crankbaits and rattle traps, they can work. They will work if you put them in the right situations, but there are more productive methods, and that's what I'm going to go into right now. Another super productive method is swim baits. Everyone knows the swim bait craze. I know it well. I've been fishing swim baits not a long time. I haven't, I mean, in the scheme of things, not a long time I've been fishing swim baits. But I've really gotten heavily into it. I've always been looking for giant fish and ways to catch more fish. And I tried out big swim baits, and it hit the ticket for me. So now I'm going to go into a couple different swim bait styles so that you can get into the swim bait game as well. We got big ones, we got small ones, we got all kinds of stuff. So we're going to get into that right now with the K-Rig. Let me unbutton it. I have it sealed up in a way right here. So let me get this set up really quickly, and we can get to talking about this thing. I'll show you why it doesn't have a head on it. I'll tell you why in just a sec. I opted to take the head off of the K-Rig for this one, just because I was throwing it on top of grass, and it was even with the original K-Rig, it was just kind of too heavy, so I just took that head off. Normally I keep this head on. I have like 8 in my bag with heads on, but I'm not going to get those out since we already have one out for you. I also trimmed it up to 3 wires. I could do this for you on specialty occasions, guys. If you only want 3 wires on your Alabama rig, your K-Rig, just let me know and I can get that set up for you. But this is just a lighter version of it. Most people throw the 5-wire rigs. Some people throw the giant school rigs with 7 or 9 wires almost. I've got it rigged up just a normal, standard 1/4 ounce jig head with a stout 4/0 hook and the Big Boy Baits Rad Shad right there in Caribbean Pearl color. I've got 3 of those on. This thing can seriously haul in the numbers. If you haven't heard about this bait, you need to get on it, because this bait last year around this time in the fall, this thing was racking up the numbers, and you could still catch a big fish on this thing in the winter as well. Throw it over suspended points, throw it on suspended fish, points, all kinds of stuff. Over rock piles, over ledges. This thing it's pretty sweet what this thing can do if it's put in the right situation. Now, I've heard stories of people buying your Alabama rig, buying a big old rod and reel, going out to their pond and throwing it and not catching anything. It's not a pond bait. It's a big lake bait. It's a bait meant for shad, lakes that have shad. It's a rig meant for lakes that have schooling and actively schooling bait fish. So it's not going to work everywhere, but when it does work, it really does work. So that's one form of swim baits you can use. Of course, a lot of people don't believe in it. That's great if you don't. I do believe in it, because I'm not going to get into that, but I do believe in Alabama rig. Another thing we're going to talk about, top hook swimmers. This is the Jerry Rago SKT inline swimmer. It's not a big bait, but it has a really nice action that I love. It's just a top hook swim bait. Jerry Rago, he's a master. Everyone knows him. This is a light hitch color from him. These are available at Tackle Warehouse. All it is just a top hook swim bait. And these things, bounce them along the bottom, run them by wood, run them on top of points, again, ledges, rock piles, brush, drop-offs. These things are pretty versatile. You could dock shot this bait, throw it up on a dock, and bring it back down into there. You can do a lot of things with this bait. It's a pretty cool one. And of course, this is not just limited. You've got the Huddlestons. You have the 316 Rising Sun top hooks. You have all kinds of top hooks out there, guys. Don't think that this is the only one. Believe me, it's not. This is just one of the many. This is not even a big bait. It's a big bait, but it's not huge. You could easily throw it on a medium heavy rod. It's a pretty smaller bait in the big bait scheme. Another bait I'm going to be talking about is one that I got turned on to at the FLW Cup, Forestwood Cup Expo. Bought this thing at the Hammond's booth, the Sebile Magic Swimmer Soft. It's a soft bait. It's a soft swim bait, and it swims just like a Spro or a Magic Swimmer or any jointed swim bait, to tell you the truth. It swims with that S. It comes with hooks. It comes with a soft weight system. It's not for everyone, but if you want a weedless swim bait to rip through grass, try this thing out, guys. It's a little something different. Back onto the main swim bait subject is we have line throughs. This right here is the Legacy Custom Tackle line through swim bait. Sean at Legacy Custom Tackle, he poured this one for me. He hand pours as well. It's a hand poured swim bait. So please check his stuff out at legacycustomtackle.com. Check him out on Facebook. A line through Swimbait, here's it is. There's a weight insert in there. Right there, there's a weight insert. And what you do is you run your line right through the nose, it goes straight through and out right there. Then you have a smaller treble hook and you tie that onto your line so that it slides up and down the line. Then you hook it right behind that dorsal fin, and there you go. A bottom hook swim bait that doesn't tear up your bait, that slides right up the line when you get hooked. It's really just a sweet concept. Legacy Custom Tackle Swim Bait. On to my personal favorite, the Huddleston. Winter fishing, you simply cannot beat a Huddleston. I have two right here. These are both 6-inch trouts. This is ROF 5 trout top hook, and I also have the additional trap hook on the bottom, and this is ROF 5 trout as well, not in the trout color, in the golden shiner color, which is the top hook. My 8-inch weedless Huddlestons, they're on the way. I really hoped they would get here by now. I really wanted them to be in this video, and I wanted to include them in this video because I know those things are going to play a giant role this winter for me. But they did not arrive, so I decided to bite the bullet and make the video without them. But I am getting a couple, I think 3 or 4 weedless Huddlestons in. They're 8-inch. It was a limited time only release. They're like sold out right now, but I finally got my hands on some, and they're in the mail. So they're 8-inch weedless. But onto these baits. These baits are just killer. There's so many videos about them. Southern Swimbait, they do a great job of detailing the Huddlestons. Hudbaits.com, Matt Peters, they all do awesome jobs of doing the Huddleston. So I'm not really going to go into so much depth because I could talk about the Huddleston for days on end. So if I did that, this video would be days long because I can talk about the Huddleston for that long. It's just that versatile and that awesome of a bait, you know. So please go check out their videos if you want more information on the Huddlestons. But basically, they're big swim baits. The 6-inch isn't even their biggest size. They have an 8-inch. But I throw the 6-inch because I'm more of a numbers and trophy guy. I like catching numbers, but I also like catching bigger fish. So I most of the time I go with the 6-inch. I have an 8-inch, but I don't throw it as much because it isn't weedless, and these two aren't weedless. My other weedless ones are in the box, but these things swim super slow. You could swim these things super slow, and because of that tail, it's very natural. You can bottom bounce these things, as you can see with the bottom hook. With this hook, you really can't because it'll just get hung up. But with this one, you just throw it and it'll sink and it'll just sit just on side like that. And when you pop it, it's just going to swim just like that. That top hook really doesn't get in any much stuff, unless you drag it through wood, of course. But the Huddleston 6-inch trout. It's a great winter bait. We can really pull some giant fish for you guys. I got multiple videos of me fishing them. My biggest bass ever caught was on a Huddleston. So they really work. So please check out the other videos online of the Huddleston, and we're going to get into the next section of this video right now. The next thing that we're going to talk about is one of the hottest winter techniques right now. Everyone knows it was coming. Here it is. The drop shot. 6-inch Big Boy Baits needle on here. Because I fish my baits, I'm going to choose the needle. 1/4 ounce spot sticker drop shot weight. And then we have the hook. Love that hook right there. Check that out on my channel. I got a video up, review of that hook. Sweet hook. This is how I rig my drop shots. Sometimes, if I'm fishing in smaller waters with more brush, cover, all that stuff, I will use a 1/0. Not anything bigger, just a 1/0 extra wide gap hook, and I'll just Texas rig it. But most of the time, I'm just using these little standout hooks. These things are just killer. And that's what I'll do right there. I pre-tie my drop shot rigs. I have like 9 or 10 of these tied in little bags because it just takes too much time to tie it, then have to run it all the way down and then tie it to your weight. So it's easy just to Palomar knot this thing and you're good to go. I have a little needle on there right now, and this bait is a way to present a super small bait, super light bait, really deep, and really very finesse style. When this thing's on there, it's just shaking like crazy. That tail, of course I can't get it to stand up right now because it's not in the water, but in the water it stands up just perfectly flat, and when you shake it, that tail is just quivering like crazy. This weight stays on the bottom, so say here's the bottom, weight stays right there, line stays taut, and you just jiggle this thing. WHTV Outdoors, Will Hankins, he does an awesome job of drop shotting. He has all sorts of drop shot videos from one of the world's best drop shot lakes, Lake Lanier, which is only conveniently 30 minutes away from me. So expect a lot of drop shot videos this winter from there. I'm going to be going there in my kayak. That's going to be fun. But there's the rig. Another way you can rig this thing, guys, is do this. Instead of rigging it and just running the hook down, you could take it like this. I know a couple people that do it this way. And run your hook in like that. And just have the, see the hook point is right there. And then that's a way to keep it weedless as well. And also, the fish, if their fish are going to hit it, they're either going to hit the tail, which happens, but most of the time they're just going to fully enclose that bait. This isn't a huge bait. You know, it's a little worm style bait. And they're going to fully enclose it, and then you just get that easy hook up. Bait stays on, you fight that fish all the way up to the top, which can be very deep sometimes. Where I like to throw the drop shot, guys, I haven't thrown the drop shot a lot. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, but I have paid attention a lot when I'm drop shotting with Will from WHTV Outdoors. He has an awesome vlog, by the way. I'll post a link to everything in the description. But we do brush piles. Lanier is a brush pile drop shot lake. We'll find a brush pile and we'll go along the outside edge. We're not going to drop straight into it because then you're just going to get your bait hung up. You drop around the edges of it, you know. You find cover, you find brush down there. You drop and you won't catch giant fish, what I've seen and heard. You won't catch 13-pounders on this technique, but you will catch a lot of numbers. Guys go out there and catch 40, 50 fish a day on the drop shot technique. And you can use a lot of variety of baits. You can use, let's see, I think I have one laying around. Yeah, the rad shad. Drop shot that. I mean, that's not a huge bait. Drop shot small craws, the scuttlebug, the punch buggy. You could drop shot so many things, guys. And it can really produce a lot of numbers. That's what it is, just a numbers technique. And ultra finesse, of course. Also, guys, a little hidden secret right here. Not a lot of people do this. There are a number of people that have been doing this, but I haven't seen it become super widespread. Drop shotting on beds. Take a little worm, drop shot it on a bed fish. You'll stick that thing because that thing looks so natural when it's just floating there. So there's my words on the drop shot. Of course, I'm not the drop shot master. Please check out Will at WHTV Outdoors and also WHTVOutdoors.com for more drop shot info. The next segment we'll get into is coming up right away. The next technique is something that has become so big in the last few years in tournament fishing that it deserves a section all its own, separate from swim baits. The fish head spin. Swarming Hornet fish head spin. Guys, Swarming Hornet is a company based right here out of Georgia that makes these baits. There are lots of knockoffs. Of course, the fishing industry has knockoffs. That's how it survives. And don't go with the knockoffs. This thing is so perfectly balanced that you really do need the original fish head spin to make this thing work. As you can see, I have a chartreuse one right here and just a pearl big boy baits rad shad on the back. And a lot of people do use paddle tails, but what I like about the rad shad is the grub tail. You know, yeah, you can have that paddle tail thumping action, but also with this thing, it's a little bit more smooth, more like a spinnerbait. Spinnerbait has that thump, but it's not a crazy thump. It's not like a crankbait thump. It's more of just that subtle vibration, which is what the rad shad does with its tail. It really complements that blade action very, very well. Again, another big Lanier bait. This thing is thrown on top of brush piles. They'll throw it off points. And what I like to do is I like to bring this thing down on my smaller waters. I'm a small waters fisherman. I always have been. I always have been. Always will be. So I like to bring this thing to small waters, put a little bluegill colored bait on it, and just rip this thing around wood. You know, rip it around the reeds and stuff. It's a lot of fun fishing this bait. It's a swim bait. You know, it's a top hook swim bait. I mean, what else do you want? It's a jig, it's a rooster tail, spinner bait, chatter bait, blade bait. It's a fish head spin, guys. That's all there is to it. You need to get yourself some of these guys. Links will be in the description. Another great way to catch a lot of quality fish in the winter or cold months, especially early spring, is the traditional suspending jerkbait. I have two right here. These are my two favorite at the time. Hook stuck in the carpet. The Smithwick Rattling and Suspending Rogue. Old school bait. Smithwick makes the Devil's Horse. They also make this really cool jerk bait. Super chrome plated. Nice hooks on it. And also, my real favorite, the Damiki Slim Jack 100. I love the edginess of this bait. A lot of you guys probably saw the Fish Hound review I did on this bait. I just love the lines of it, the way it contours, the weight system, and the overall, it's really a 21st century bait. The black eyes, everything just pops on this bait. I like to throw this thing really far on like a 6'6" to 7 foot, medium to medium heavy, mainly medium, light bait casting outfit on, of course, 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon. The key thing about this is the pause. When these baits pause, they pause. They don't just pause like this. They don't pause like this. They don't pause like this. They pause nose down, and when you crank them, they go pop down, dropping them all over the place, and they just stay just like that. Crank down like that, and suspend. They just sit there. They don't float. They don't sink. They just sit there. Don't ask me how they do it. I'm a soft bait maker, not a hard bait maker, but they just sit there. And that's the great thing about these baits. Is there's so many fish that will just come up. You will not be surprised. You will be so surprised, at how many fish probably come up to your bait and stare at it. There could be 10 pounders that come up to your bait, look at it, swim away. With this bait, you're going to get those fish that look at it and swim away. Early spring, of course, everyone's talking about jerk baits. Tournaments are won. Thousands upon thousands of dollars are won on suspending jerk baits every year. So pick up some suspending jerk baits this year. Throw it on a nice light bait casting outfit, and you can catch some serious numbers and actually some really quality fish. So thanks for watching this, guys.